Well, I know quite a bit. Hiya! So, Taru, are you ready? We are on another episode of Guess the Phobia.
I don't know why I keep doing this to myself.
He always gets into trouble. But you know what? Last time we did about 8 phobias, and I don't know how many of these you remember.
I think I got 1 right.
Yeah, out of 8.
That's an okay success rate.
Even that one that was right, it was close to being right. It wasn't
Don't
right.
shoot down my achievements.
Okay, I'll give you that one. But I have a fresh new set of phobias for you. There are 8 of them today. And one of them is from the last time. Just to check if you remember. Okay?
I'm not gonna come out of this looking
Alright.
good.
Ready for your first one?
Yeah.
Alright, so your first phobia is Cynophobia. What do you think this could be?
Fear of sinuses?
It's
fear of the movie Signs.
It's not SIGNO phobia.
Oh, I know this one. Fear of movies.
No, it's nothing of what you think.
Cynophobia. How do you spell it? Give me a spelling.
CYNO phobia.
Fear of cyanide?
Not like everybody knows what cyanide and has tried cyanide.
Fear of... I mean, if you tried it, then you'd be dead, right?
That's right. There's no reason to fear it anymore.
Fear of... I have no idea. I can't think of any words going CYN.
CY.
Fear of...
Do you want a hint?
Yeah. Do you not want to give me a hint?
Yeah, it's
I already
too
look
easy.
bad enough as this.
They're furry.
It could mean so many things. Small?
And big.
What? Fear of cats?
Fear of dogs. Cynophobia is a fear of dogs.
But what?
This includes everything from small poodles to large Great Danes.
Why sign?
Like canine.
Oh, that's a very unsatisfying answer.
Like that's the thing with phobias, right? Like who knows what... Wait, you remember? Okay, I'll ask you one from last time.
Oh, yeah?
As promised.
Okay.
But this one's easy, okay? There's a movie like this. So, arachnophobia.
Oh, fear of spiders. I knew that one. That's the only phobia I know. 1 of 8. 1 of 2. 1 of 2. I'm
He's
good.
already predicted it. Okay, the fear of spiders affects women 4 times more than men.
Really? Are you scared of spiders?
48% women and 12% men. Are you scared of spiders? Spiders.
I don't know. I feel like if I go to Australia and I get attacked by one of their spiders, I'd be scared.
Yeah, those
I'm
are
not scared. Yeah, I'm not scared of those tiny guys that walk around the wall.
Okay.
Are you?
Won't tell.
So yes.
They can be used against me. Okay, gamophobia.
Fear of games.
Nope.
Fear of being gamed.
Nope.
Fear of hunting.
Nope.
Fear of being hunted.
Nope.
Game. Game. Oh my god, this is harder than it looks. Gamophobia. Wait. I have absolutely no idea. Give me a hint. Has it got anything to do with games?
It does, but it would be
Video games or like mental games?
mental games.
Fear of puzzles.
No.
Is that close?
It's more of a... It's a bit contradictory to what it sounds like.
Fear of not liking puzzles? That can't be right. I just made up a
You
thing.
just like... Yeah. Gamophobia is like you don't like games, right? I mean,
That's
it
what
could be that. I'm not saying it is that. But in this case, it's contradictory to that.
So you fear not being able to like games? How do you be
How
contradictory to
compound
that?
is that? No, let me just tell you, okay? Gamophobia.
Fear of not having games.
Ah, now you're talking.
Fear of not having puzzles.
That was a hint, by the way.
Fear of not being able to talk.
No.
You're not giving me too much. You just said, aha, that was a hint.
So, fear of not being able to play games is what you said. Now think on those lines.
Fear of
You're close.
fear of not knowing what a game is. Fear of
Talk about regression.
fear
No.
of not being able to game.
No, the fear of commitment.
What? What has that got to do with games? That was not close enough at all for you to say that's a
I
hint.
told you it's mental games.
I said puzzles and you said close. It's got nothing to do with puzzles. Okay.
So the fear of commitment or sticking with someone to the end is
that has
gamophobia.
zero things to do with games. I'm sorry. Your hints were wrong.
Well, it does in some twisted way if you think about it.
I had no relationship with you. Good God. Alright. Give me a reasonable one.
This one is one for you from the last time we played.
Are you just gonna embarrass me? What is this?
Pagonophobia. Come
I
on.
remember what I said last time and it was wrong.
He remembers the wrong answer, but not the right one.
Fear of pagodas?
No.
Pagona. Okay, give me a field. What are we talking about?
I would be scared of you if I had pagonophobia.
Fear of men? Fear of red shirts?
I said fear.
Fear of beards? Yes.
After like 10,000 hints, yeah. That doesn't count. You lost.
No, that counts. And your last
said
question didn't count.
pagodas.
I've got 2 out of 3.
No.
Because you gave me the wrong
You
hints for
got like-
gamophobia.
Okay.
I've got 2 out of 3.
Alright, fine. Next one.
66%.
Phobophobia.
Fear of fears.
Yes.
I've lost count. How many have I got? 3 out of 4.
3 out of 5.
4.
5.
Gamophobia didn't count. Your hints were bad.
No, gamophobia was amazing. What are you saying? Like, I gave you like the closest, twisted, most.
You gave me nothing. You went, that's close. And it wasn't close.
Okay, you're next. 6th phobia. Kinematophobia.
Tiny morto.
Kinematophobia. Oh, this one's going to be really interesting because it's got 2 words. That's a hint, by the way.
Fear of dying on a motorcycle. Fear of dying at speed.
That's a good guess, but no.
Is dying involved in any way?
Yes.
Okay, so morto is dying, right?
Morto is.
So I gotta figure out what kine is.
Just keep
It's got something to do with kinetic, I'm guessing. It's something about speed, movement. Yes? No?
Yes.
I can't trust your hints anymore.
It is true. Both
Okay.
are right. But
Fear
then
of
when you put
dying
them
at
to-
speed.
when you put them together, what do you get?
Fear of dying early. Fear of dying young. Fear of dying fast.
No!
Fear of dying slow.
You always go so far away.
Fear of dying close by.
No!
Okay, fear of dying on a train track. Fear of my producer's doing something. Fear of Frankenstein.
No giving hints. Oh my
He
god.
just did
am I
this. What is
Googling?
this? Fear of monsters. Fear of dying of fast monsters. Fear of being caught by monsters. Fear of riding a bike into a monster. Fear of sharing a bike with a monster.
Fear of zombies.
That is not fast at all.
Kine is anything that moves. Mort is
It's death. I
dead
got
or
the death
death.
bit.
Dead.
Dead.
So dead,
Oh,
mort,
fear of the dead.
kine. So kine is dead man walking.
I'm not satisfied with
Walking Dead, Kine Morto, Walking
Yeah,
Dead.
but that
Get
could
it?
just be
Get
fear of the
it?
show Walking
Walking Dead.
that. That could just be the fear of the show Walking Dead, not actual zombies.
No, but this is a phobia.
I question your research.
Kine Morto is zombies.
I question your research.
No.
This
You should-
phobia
you
has been
should
discounted
question
because she
the
doesn't know
person
what it
who
actually
coined
is.
this. The person who coined this was definitely a Walking Dead fan.
Was it the it must be the director of Walking Dead, right?
Oh, could be. He's like, let's term a new.
How do we increase our popularity? We need to get onto a small show that does phobias. Like 8 years after we debut.
Makes no sense at all, but yeah.
It's a truth.
Next one.
The truth is stranger than
Next
fiction.
one. This one is like perfect for you. It's called ergophobia. Tell me why.
Fear of being comfortable? Fear of... Because ergonomics is like being comfortable, right?
Very close.
Fear of comfort. Fear of... I can't trust you when you say you're very close anymore, so I could be very far away. Fear of keyboards. Fear of...
Close.
It's two completely different things. Fear of your own fingers.
God, no.
Fear of sitting. Fear of sitting for too long. Fear of standing. Fear of standing for too long. Fear of running.
No.
Moving. Zombies.
No. What's the last one?
Fear of comfortable chairs.
More? Like...
Fear of comfortable sofas.
You spoke about comfort.
Am I scared of comfort?
When are you comfortable?
I mean, I'm pretty comfortable.
I'm just giving
in a
you
chair.
the best hint.
When you're not working. Fear of working.
There you go.
Is that actually a clue?
Fear of working.
I can't believe that hit worked. That was not a good hit. I got that
It was
completely
an
by myself.
amazing
It was a horrible hit. She gets no credit for that.
It was a great hint.
So was that 4, 5 right answers?
Yeah, out of 7. No, 4 answers out of 7.
Thought I could just...
Your next one. Bathophobia.
Fear of baths. Fear of the city bath. Fear of Roman baths. Fear of nudity. Fear of public nudity. Fear of having sex in public?
Bathophobia? No.
Fear of not owning a bathtub?
Actually, it has nothing to do with... Okay,
Tell me this now after I've gone through like 30 minutes of bath-related fears. Okay, fear of Romans? I don't know if that means I'm close or you're just bored or what.
Bored? No, not Romans. Okay, I'll give you a hint. Something that... Now, if I give you a hint, that'll be giving it away.
Your hints aren't good. It won't be giving it away.
What is common between a lake, a tunnel, and a bridge?
Water?
Water and tunnel.
A lake, a tunnel, and a bridge.
Or a cave.
You're just adding more things that don't fit to the same circle. They're dark?
It's a little more on those lines. Dark and what else?
Drowned, dingy, moist, humid.
Why?
Because they're dark. No sun. Fear of no
you know
sun.
what?
Fear of no
I've
sun.
just come to
Fear of light.
No. I've just come to a conclusion. No amount of hints work on you.
That's because you give hints that don't make sense. Okay.
No. If you're watching, my hints make the most sense.
Fear of wetness. Fear of being wet? Fear of rain.
Nope.
What the hell has a lake got to do with a cave, a tunnel, and a bridge?
That's what I'm saying. What is common between...
Darkness.
Bathophobia is a fear of depths.
What is the depth of the bridge?
It can be anything that you can't see beyond a point.
These aren't hints. If there's anyone watching who thinks any of these hints are any good, you can come here, take your place. Oh my god, I can't.
So let's calculate your scores. You got arachnophobia,
yes.
You got phobophobia,
yes.
You got pagonophobia after like 10,000 hints. Then you got ergophobia.
I kind of forgot about pagonophobias.
Okay, I take that back. You got
No, but I got it. Beards. Yes. First try.
So you got ergophobia, and that's it.
I got 4, 5.
You got 4.
5.
4.
5.
4.
5. I think we discovered last time she's scared of math, so it's 5.
And he's scared of the number 4. Or 5.
So I think to get over my fears, I need to get a 5. I got a 5.
God. So that was phobias, and
This
you have a
is me
phobia
facing
for me. Random.
Yeah, she just randomly, 3 seconds before we went live, she went, oh, why don't you just give me a phobia at the end? Like I'm sitting around with a book of phobias.
Like, see, I need to feel challenged to it.
If I knew that many phobias, I would have been able to answer your questions.
No, he wouldn't.
Agoraphobia.
Agoraphobia is the fear of open spaces.
No, the fear of agoras.
I'm never going to ask you again for a phobia. But that was me and Taru with phobias. Guess the phobias. So if you've guessed it right, then score yourself. Don't be like unfair like Taru. And don't cheat like Taru.
Didn't even know what agoraphobia was.
You can never get hints either, but I'm sure you're like.
If anyone thinks any of our hints worked, any at all, even a single one,
comment and let me know.
We will bring you to the studio to do this job.
Yes, absolutely. You will be a special guest on this phobia hot seat.
Yeah, you and Vidya can sit and talk in riddles.
No, we still want Taru. Thank you guys. Come back again for Guess the Phobia.
And we've got Shivku, who's the CEO of Exotel, and he has created this virtual number. Now, to a lot of a young audience out there, young tech audience, what is cloud telephony? Not that it's something new.
Cloud communication in the context of cloud computing.
Okay.
So what's happening with the cloud revolution is that people used to have servers in the office, and somebody decided that hey, the internet bandwidth has become quite large now. So why don't we just take all these servers and put it in a data center, and can we access the computing power and the storage capabilities of these servers remotely? And then one led on to another, and then now that's like a thriving $100 billion business now. In fact, if I'm not wrong, it's the only business in Amazon that makes money for Amazon, by the way, even today.
To be noted.
So
finally somebody knows how Amazon makes all his money. But look forward to that.
So now that's about computing. So now if you were to now apply the same analogy to communication, earlier companies used to have servers and then lines coming from telcos connected, and there used to be an IT person who used to manage it. And most of you must have seen this big white phone that a receptionist used to have. So all of that was like boxes and wires inside a company. So can we now put all of that into the cloud? And can we now just use our mobile phones, which are pretty good with computing and stuff? And can we now give a internet-based interface where the entire system can be programmed and managed? In fact, we went one further, even below. We said, can we now give what we call as APIs, which stands for Application Programming Interface, which is kind of like the language that computers use to talk to each other. So if you are now a developer in a large enterprise that thinks about setting up communication maybe with your customer in a certain way, using a certain business process, then you could actually write code using our APIs to create exactly what you have in mind. So a few years ago we made the decision that enterprise communication is stuck in the shackles and it needs to be brought out of this jail. And we thought that the best way of doing that was to simply give these APIs, which are like the basic building blocks using which we can build communication, and let the customer decide what they want to do.
Do you feel you've succeeded in bringing that up?
Oh, we have a long way to go. I think the concept is certainly getting a lot of traction. For example, nobody would have thought that it is possible to use these APIs, and you were talking about the virtual numbers that, for example, Ola and Uber use to. The ultimate goal there is to protect the phone number or the privacy of the customer from going into the hands of the driver, because, well, it's a transactional thing that you don't want that person.
How do you stop that in this platform that you've created then?
So the way it works is every time you book a ride, then Ola servers now pings our servers and says, hey, give me a phone number, temporary phone number that I can use to now connect you and the driver. All of this is happening in real time using APIs, and then so you call that number, number then is basically programmed to send the call to the driver and vice versa. So that's how that works.
So how big is this market in India right now? Because this technology, this platform, this concept is not something new, right? I know even if it's 2018, and on one hand you say there is still more adoption which is needed. Why do you say that still? Because it's been there for a long time, and there are big billion-dollar companies who have been working around in this. So why is the adoption now not full throttle still in this area?
Sure, actually we are transforming the market. So I think right now, whenever you think of enterprise communication, you're probably thinking call center, you're probably thinking telemarketing, you're probably thinking Cisco, you're probably thinking Vodafone, right? So there are a bunch of different players in this enterprise communication market. So I think you can probably put the market size in India for about $4 billion.
$4 billion
per year. So I think that's we've done this estimation in a few different ways. And so now Exotel's job is twofold. One is we are now kind of doing what Cisco does, little bit what Vodafone does, little bit what maybe IBM does, little bit what Avaya does, and then of course they're all doing it on-prem and stuff. So we're putting it all on the cloud. So that's absolutely
this is like a unified collaboration suite that you completely want. You want to become a UC player at the end of the day.
That's right.
Okay.
So that market does not exist in India.
Who's your potential buyer then in the next 3 or 4 years?
So, and then along, I mean, several barricades that we need to cross. I think, the fact that the Indian telecom network is fragile, that's one. The telecom network itself is actually going through a lot of changes. 3G to 4G to 5G and Geo comes. A whole bunch of changes are happening. Then there are changes in regulations that are happening. And then there are changes in technology that are happening. So there is a whole bunch of moving parts here, and then we are trying to see how best to position ourselves. So that.
Tell me one thing. I'll just take a step back. I mean, it's like you're like the man in the middle. I mean, there's also the man in the middle attack, but you're like the man in the middle over here. Now, tell me something. You have customers in India. Compared, how many customers do you have across the world? I mean, say North America or somewhere in Europe. How many customers do you have over there?
So
comparatively compared to India.
We actually don't have any customers in US or Europe.
Okay.
So international customers are mostly from Southeast Asia at this point in time.
Okay.
So we are also an enterprise player. So the number of customers is not necessarily that exciting. But 20% of our revenues now come from Southeast Asia.
Lovely. Tell me something. So when you knew, I mean, before you were getting in, I mean, we'll talk about your checkered past also. But before you were getting into, creating a platform like this, boss, there are already big players in the market. There are already, settled players who have a lot buyers. It was the pricing a big thing that you throw at them, I will give it a lesser price. But what new did you bring to the market when you knew there were already so many big players in the market?
Actually,
were you ever asked this? I'm sure you were asked some of these questions from your customers. So what did you tell them? What was your pitch?
Sure. So the vision for Exotel is to actually take communication, pioneer communications to the cloud in emerging markets. And one of the fascinating things about emerging markets is that actually there is nothing called cloud and communications in any of these markets. So, while this is a thriving industry in the US, this is actually emerging in India today, and quite frankly, we are the ones who are creating it. So it's not like the.
And why do you think that has happened? I mean, I want to understand that. Why do you think that has happened now? Why is it happening now? There is an emerging market.
Mostly because I think 100 of us are coming to work every day. I think we had to actually do a lot of plumbing work. The regulations are different. The telecom network is different.
Yes.
The use cases are different. Customer expectations are different. So the reasons why people use phone calls are different. So actually there are changes in the market. There are changes in terms of pricing. There are changes in terms of technology. So there are a whole bunch of things that we need to change. So
great, lovely. So, sorry, but I have one question for you with that. Now, I'll go back to the same concept which an average man might understand, the virtual number concept. Now, say there is a customer, like you mentioned the word Vodafone, for example. Say a company like Vodafone, for example, who's a famous company, people know about it and all of that. On the other hand, say, I know because I was working on a story for the last couple of months, you have this fake call center who have been scamming people in the US who also use your service. How do you differentiate that? There are so many of them use similar services, similar cloud telephony services to reach out to customers in the US. How do you differentiate between a customer who's using a service for the right purpose or not?
Well, as far as my knowledge goes, I don't think anybody is using us for fake call center.
Okay. I'm just curious. If that happens, how do you? So because you need to also read the data, then how do you decide whether it's a proper company who is on a contract with us or not?
Sure. And quite frankly, that's not our job.
Okay.
So we think of ourselves as like you rightly said, middleman. So you can kind of think of Exotel to be like a next generation telecom operator.
Okay.
So just like how you don't expect, let's say, a Vodafone to now sit and determine what calls are good calls and what calls are not good calls. Similarly, I don't think Exotel's job is to actually determine that.
Okay.
So, however, being an intermediary, and then obviously we conform to several regulations in IT Act and
I mean there are so many of them in the
internet telecom. That's absolutely. So we are obligated to help the government unearth some of these issues if at all something comes up. So I think we are actually playing perhaps a better role in sort of helping the government in identifying some of these people easier, faster. Okay. Just like how it is easier.
So you are doing that, you're saying, as a process you are doing
absolutely. That. So just like how it is easier for the customer to set it up and go live quickly, it is actually easy for the government also to find out who is doing hanky-panky also very easily.
So how, if I'm a customer today, if I say I come from the state government, say for example, hypothetically I'm an officer from the state government of Karnataka and I want to really tackle the issue of these fake call centers in India. There's a lot of money flowing in that area as well. I want to take your help. How long will it take for me to set up this entire platform of yours? How long will it take?
Well, I actually see two things here. So one is to set up a virtual call center, it will take, I don't know, half an hour if you know the system very well.
Half an hour.
So you can
like
actually...
half an hour, man hour, like along with everything.
That's it.
Okay.
Now, just to delve a little deeper on the fake call center, I think the business model in fake call center is to take PSTN calls and route international calls over IP. Okay. And so they use this disparity in regulations to make money. Wow. So that's the business model in fake call center.
Okay.
And I don't think it is possible to use Exotel in that manner because we actually don't do any IP calls. So all our calls are actually only on cell phones.
Okay.
So as far as my knowledge goes, it is not possible to use Exotel for creating what you call as a fake call center.
Okay.
Yeah.
So who are your customers right now? What kind of, even if you don't want to name them, but what kind of customers do you have right now in India? And Southeast, I mean, see, most of it also comes, you say 25-30% comes from Southeast Asia. So what type of organizations are these who use your
I'll be more than happy to, I'm say that we are a proud partner of pretty much all the companies in the startup ecosystem in India. So
one I just mentioned, is that the correct?
Absolutely.
Okay.
So, we think of ourselves as the backbone of the Indian startup ecosystem. So if you think of, let's say, VCs as helping the startup ecosystem.
The last time who told me that? The gentleman who leads AWS in India. We are the backbone of the Indian ecosystem because all the services they give.
Absolutely, right? I mean, I agree. I think AWS is definitely a backbone. I think VCs are a bunch of people who provide as a backbone, and I think Exotel is also a backbone. I think the mere presence of Exotel is allowing for these startups to create innovative pricing models, reduce risk, increase efficiency, and I think the one-upness of startups is basically implementation of technology. If you really think about it.
So what's the pricing like for this model?
It'll be like a usual, per minute, per SMS. There'll be some software rental, there'll be some integration charge. So
it's an as a service model.
That's
like as a service model. Also, to keep to that thought, do you also do sentimental analysis of all the data, the calls, and do you also work with the customers in accordance with that?
Not right now. We had a project that was underway for a little while.
Okay.
And
I
then,
remember there's something on that sort last year or year before that, if I'm not
that's right. So ultimately, we decided that we were not able to build the kind of confidence that we wanted for that. And then now, if you notice, it has gotten into this AI realm. And then there are a whole bunch of these companies, startups that are coming up in the AI portfolio. So right now, our plan is to actually partner with one of these AI companies, because you need a lot more than just voice to be able to really determine what the person is trying to say.
Fascinating. Explain me that. What are you going to do? How does AI and cloud telephony come together? Now, before that, help me understand. A lot of people come here. I've met a lot of people in the last 2-3 years. I mean, great. We're moving towards a new technology paradigm. It's just like what happened with cloud so many years ago, right? Everybody, cloud computing is the next big thing. Great. Not that something like utility computing was not there even before that. It's just a marketing term you give to that. How is AI a marketing buzzword right now? Because I honestly feel, looking at all the platforms or all the technology, whatever has been created for enterprise or consumer, there's still some years to go before we can call artificial intelligence as intelligent intelligence. First, help me understand that. Is it a buzzword right now?
I think it is.
Okay, fair enough.
So I think several people confuse heuristics
Brilliant.
for
Absolutely.
artificial intelligence.
Absolutely.
So in my mind, artificial intelligence is when a computer is able to make decisions without the help of But what actually gets sold as AI is a human who is now thinking about the several different possibilities of a particular problem and then coding all of these things, and then just the computer is just going through a flow chart and making decisions. So that's not really
exactly. You still have a human interference in that model.
That's right.
So having said that, how are you merging AI and cloud telephony, if I can put it together? What is your role in that? How does your platform connect with it? It's really fascinating. Explain me that.
Sure. So I think having said that AI is a buzzword, I also think that some really amazing work is going on in AI.
Sure, absolutely, agree.
So now, so the key to, I think, great AI is data.
Mm-hmm.
So now we have a whole bunch of data in terms of voice calls, right?
Mm-hmm.
Now we have to take this, we have to take, let's say the company is using a support CRM, then the text that is associated in there. We have to take what is there in the sales CRMs, we have to take what is there in the ERP.
Okay.
Maybe we have to crawl the web. And then, we have to now build systems that is able to now understand what the customer is actually trying to do. So I think it is possible for just taking one phone call and determining the emotional thing. I think compared to that, if you now add all of these other kinds of data and then build a model that's more holistic, I think that'd be a lot more successful.
Okay.
So now I think it's become a separate field in itself. So I think we will be parties that will be now using these systems. We'll be contributing data. All data systems will be contributing data, and then they will be building these AI models, and then we will again be consumers of this AI system to now make decisions on
Lovely.
So I think that's the way I sort of think about it.
Okay, lovely. So in this scenario, then in that case, now you look at what's happening in Europe. Finally, after so many years, GDPR. Now the thing is, it all boils down to data privacy. But I think it's a topic that everybody has an opinion on that. You have to the way I believe it. Some part of privacy you need to give away if you want to live in today's era of internet, in a digital era. Every device is connected. You have so many devices you're using. Now, having said that, you saw what happened in India last year, December. Justice Sri Krishna committee report came out in terms of data privacy. India still 3 or 4 years away, if I'm not wrong, in terms of us having a data privacy rule. How much will a privacy law or a privacy law impact this model of yours if it comes into play? Because this is about collection of data, and this is a lot of, it's like crawling online and looking at all data points along with the sentiment analysis of a call. So how much will privacy laws affect you?
No, you're absolutely right. I think the direction in which the whole world is going towards is, I think the model of GDPR is still extremely relevant. I think as consumers, none of us like spam. We are certainly flabbergasted that somebody knows things about us that we don't expect them to know. So I think I am completely of the view that customers should own their data, and they should have the ability to decide who can or who cannot use it. Nobody else, I think, has the right. But the problem, I think, in India is we have to be a little bit careful. Half the people are still trying to understand what a smartphone is. And several of them probably don't understand English, they don't understand technology, and so they most likely don't even understand what privacy is.
Exactly, absolutely.
So now if you create all of these encumbrances before they can actually start using some of this data, then either they will just not use it at all, or they'll just get confused and they'll say, okay, use everything, right?
Correct.
So I think rules are one thing, but I think whether we are able to educate the masses about what is actually going on, I think that's the key thing here.
So for example, say the end customer is a ride-hailing service in India, the name which I took at the beginning of the show, and you are giving them this platform, and I'm the end customer in a tier 3 town in India using that, and say somewhere my data is being used for some modeling over here. Do you make the terms and conditions readable? Because the biggest problem with terms and conditions, nobody understands what terms. It's like goes into some white papers of 8 pages which nobody gives. But how do you help a customer in that case? If the end customer is me, for example, you and me, if you're using a cab hailing services, what do you do in that case? How do you define privacy for that person then?
So, by the way, actually, it's not like we reuse or repurpose this data without the company's permission.
Sure.
So, we actually have contractual obligation with some of these companies. So, we actually cannot use it unless the company allows us to.
Absolutely.
So, right now, that is the extent to which we sort of manage it. So, if the company wants, let's say, emotion detection, and if the company explicitly gives us permission to do it, then we go ahead and do it.
Okay.
Now, it is up to the company to decide how, on what is the basis in which they are getting their thing from. But I agree with you. I think something like a phone call is just very messy. Like, how do you ask for permission? Like, what are you supposed to intercept the call and then say, hey, he might be doing emotional analysis. Are you okay with this?
Oh God.
So it's I don't know. I'd love to.
I like that. So you want privacy on the phone? I want to ask you: are you still looking for funding? The last time I met you, we had a different discussion. But are you still looking for funding?
That's not how I think about that question. Actually, I think the question that I ask myself every day in the morning is, do we want to grow?
I got my answer.
Yeah, so the answer is yes. So I think that there are, if that's the question that you're asking, I think there are 2-3 different ways of looking at growth. I think there are some kinds of business building measures that requires or necessitates the need for you to raise external funding. And if your growth strategy is like that, I think you need to go raise funds. However, that is not to say that that's the only way to go.
Only way. Yes, that's very important to point out.
So I think, I hope that Exotel is a shining example of the fact that it is possible to build a tech startup in India, selling in India, growing profitably. And I believe we'll be in the top dozen companies in India that have sort of gotten to how far we have gotten from. So I think entrepreneurs are able to look at us as an example of what is possible and don't get bogged down by just what the VCs say, because see, ultimately everybody is winging it. Everybody is just people. So,
so also then, I mean, how do you bootstrap against competitors who are possibly more funded?
By not playing their game.
Okay, give me an example. So there was another company doing the same field.
What I'm saying is that you can't go and try to form a team and play cricket with CSK and.
Good evening and welcome to the daily World Cup update. And what did Russia do yesterday? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 fucking goals.
Just swore off the bat and started sweating. Anyway, they got 5. It's honestly the highest scoring game I can think of as an opening game for a while.
Well, that's the funny thing. I mean, from 1930, after 1936, this is the highest number of goals which have been scored in an opening match.
So by one side.
By one side. By the host nation. By the host nation. And have you seen the median age of the Russian team? The defender came out of retirement.
Yeah, they're 38-year-old central defender
who came out of retirement because they just didn't have players.
Yeah, they lost Zagoyev after 1 goal and they still managed to get a 5-goal performance.
And it was not like a fluke performance where they were playing badly or just goals went in the midfield. It was a creative midfield. They were pushing forward.
I mean, can we talk about Golovin for a second?
We should buy them.
Hardcore football. You want United to buy everyone. Hardcore football fans have heard about Golovin and talking about, he's a future, this, that, etc. But for people like us who don't really watch that much Russian football on a day-to-day basis, he's a revelation, man.
Oh, absolutely.
Incredible. 2 assists and an incredible free kick.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I mean, for every other goal, Putin just turned around and went, oh, sorry, Mr. Saudi Arabian, whatever you are.
I'm like,
but the last goal,
you have oil, I have got it.
Yeah.
But I think it was this is the best way you can start the biggest sporting event on earth. The host country scoring 5 goals against Saudi Arabia.
But they really laid down a marker, right? Because everyone is expecting Group A, Uruguay and Egypt. That's it. The others is just there to make up numbers. But Russia is really
absolutely. And the funny thing is why this match becomes so important. Not just because it's the first match, host nation scoring so many goals. Also because Russia lost their last 7 matches on a trot. They had players injured. They had their main striker injured. And I still can't get over the fact they called a 38-year-old defender who was retirement. He was chilling, having his vodka, I guess, in Russia. He comes back, plays the first match in the World Cup, and he actually doesn't let 1 goal also go away.
Yeah, I mean, Saudi Arabia. But yeah, it was pretty insane. I mean, Uruguay was probably looking at both of the defenses going, Suarez is going to take a bite out of them. But
that's a big question. Will Suarez bite anybody?
Yeah, Group A is pretty open. Uruguay's got a lot of talent, but they're also kind of old at this point. Cavani, Suarez, Godin.
Cavani is way past his prime. Suarez is 31.
Cavani's been playing France, which I think is a bit of a letdown for him.
He plays for a farmers league. Yeah, League 1 is a farmers league. I mean, you score 30 goals over there. It's like 30 goals is like equal to 10 goals in the Premier League with that kind of defense.
I don't know, it's that bad, but it's not good.
Yeah, good.
So Suarez hasn't exactly had a great season in Barcelona.
But he's still this is the funny thing about Barcelona players. I mean, Suarez or Messi. We say they didn't have a great season and all. When you look at the numbers, he still has 20 plus goals.
Yeah, but you're talking about a team that almost went unbeaten in the league. When you have Messi creating for you left, right, and center.
Exactly, that's the funny thing. Messi I mean, a lot of people don't watch football. They think Messi is this great striker. He also creates goals for the team.
He does a lot. Anyway, okay.
He plays a creative midfield.
We're talking about Uruguay. Anyway, so now Uruguay. Today we've got Uruguay versus Egypt, which is supposed to be the big hits, the big heavyweights. Who do you think is going to win?
The people of Egypt, because Salah is back.
So that's who you want to win. Who do you think is going to win?
I mean, if you honestly look at it, it's Uruguay. They have a better front, better defense, and better midfield at least.
Yeah.
Egypt just has, and Salah is on
Egypt has some decent players. No, so Salah apparently is 100% fit.
He's 100% fit, but he's not starting the match.
I think he is.
He's not starting the match.
Not?
No, he's not starting the match. The information just came in. He's not starting the match. But, dude, I mean, can we just talk about Salah for a minute or two? This man is like the top of the entire... He's single-handedly brought the entire Egypt together. All other political parties, all the wrong things that have been going on in the country. And, I mean, look at Tahrir Square, the same Tahrir Square where the entire what was the protest called?
The Arab Spring.
The legendary Arab Spring which started on Tahrir Square. The only other time all the people in Egypt came together and stood at Tahrir Square when this guy scored 2 goals to take Egypt, when Egypt defeated Congo.
2 last-minute goals to get into the World Cup.
Get into the World Cup. I mean, those are legendary moments. Yeah. We see one man carrying an entire. He's like a pyramid. His image is like that.
I mean, it's like he did for Liverpool all season.
Oh. and I still can't get over the fact. I think the highest-selling newspaper in Egypt, the headline that they went for a day after, Liverpool lost the Champions League final against Real Madrid. You know what the headline was? Mohamed Salah hand broken by, and then there was an abusive word by so-called Ramos. There were death threats to Ramos, and there was actually a lawyer in Egypt who filed a $800 million suit against Ramos. And this is for the people of Egypt. For mental abuse, and for what? Because he broke his hand. It's football.
So speaking of Ramos and Real Madrid winning, we've got 2 insane competitors coming up against club mates. Ramos against Ronaldo. Both of them, we both know at national level they have no sympathies for friends.
Tell me something. Do you think? This is what happens with big teams, right? Really big teams and big players at big moments like these. I think today, of all the 3 matches, I somehow think the Iran and Morocco match will be the more interesting one. But somehow I get the feel, and going by the history of these kind of matches, Spain and Portugal will be the most boring match to watch.
See, I would have agreed with you until the start of this week. But this week has been crazy for both countries. Spain obviously fired their coach, got Fernando Hierro.
We talked about it last day, I still can't digest the fact.
So Spain's in disarray. Portugal's got a different kind of disarray. So one of the leading clubs in Portugal, Sporting, their owner has been at war with their players for the last 4 or 5 months.
And they brought 3 players in.
To the point where the fans came in and attacked the players. So these players just went, alright, you guys aren't protecting me, your contract is invalid. So 4 players, including William Carvalho, Gelson Martins.
And if you're playing football manager 2018, Gelson Martin is absolutely phenomenal.
That's true, but that's off topic. But Rui Patricio, all these guys, who are stalwarts of Sporting team, have left, and they're all in the Portugal team. So even though they're the reigning Euro champions, they've got Ronaldo, they're also in a bit of a turmoil right now. And so we've got 2 teams that aren't exactly organized, going at it, famous
because
for their
both
attacks.
have had structural issues before, because it's not football. These are all issues off the pitch.
Exactly.
It's not something like footballing. This guy's not playing. This guy's not playing. No, these are all structural political issues with people who are ruling the club. The fans around them.
Godin of Uruguay actually gave an interesting interview to Guardian this year about the 2014 World Cup. How he felt Uruguay could win it until Suarez was banned for biting. And he deserved to be banned, whatever. But
he did.
The emotional thing of having your best striker banned for the rest of the tournament, even if you go through, it killed that tournament.
Correct.
So is that going to happen to Spain and Portugal this time? We'll find out soon.
And also, talking about Suarez, if you look at his the current manager of Uruguay, he's talking about it. He went out at the open and said, "These were his words. It's like, Luis Suarez has matured a lot." Now, I really find that funny. So maturity in footballing terms nowadays means they don't bite people.
We really pay these children way too much money. Anyway, but can you imagine a scenario where Morocco...
I still can't forget the image. He was holding his tooth like
holding his tooth. I got my tooth biting him.
I didn't do it. I didn't bite him.
No, but can you imagine a situation because Spain and Portugal are...
And those are the fans.
Our producer has decided that he doesn't want us to shoot anymore, so he decided to run, just start shouting.
Because that is the excitement in India right now with football fans. Everybody's shouting even at the stadium.
He literally just ran in and going, "Did you hear about Ronaldo?" We're going, "No, we didn't. We're on TV.
We're talking about Mohamed Salah right now."
Anyway, but can you imagine a situation? Iran and Morocco go through because Spain and Portugal are too much in disarray.
If Morocco, I really want Morocco to go through. A lot of people don't realize it's a crazy footballing country, Morocco. It's a crazy footballing country. And I feel bad for them because they've lost out 6 bids to host a World Cup.
I really feel bad for them because they'd be a great country to host. It's nice and small, people can get around, it's relatively safe.
Because what do you want? Just like the way what football means for Brazil, a lot of people don't realize it. People think that football, not for non-footballing fans, what football is in Brazil is just like cricket in India, like from Sachin in India. Morocco, go read about Morocco. Football is as crazy as cricket is in India over there. And that
the only problem is they're not that good. And they're in Africa, so there's no funds. And they're like fighting a war in their own country,
because
so there's no funds.
Exactly, because I hope you guys know, because there was another show which came up a couple of days ago where we clearly talked about the fact Deepak Shah clearly talked about the fact that what it means for a country to host a football World Cup. It's not economically that viable for a country.
There are good reasons for it, but might not have made the most sense for Morocco. But from a fan's perspective, I would have rather gone to Casablanca 2026 than Washington DC.
You really think the producers will, give us a paid trip to Morocco?
Our producers spend too much time interrupting our shows to pay for it.
That is also the thing.
Yeah. Anyway, so we've got Spain. So let's get a prediction, right?
Absolutely.
Uruguay, Egypt. You going for Uruguay?
I'll put my bets on Egypt and Salah coming.
Yeah, I'm going to go for Egypt.
Yeah. Salah coming in the 60th minute.
The romantic in me wants that. Okay, Morocco, Iran.
That's like poetic justice to that. Morocco and Iran. Morocco, man.
No, I'm going to go for Iran. Iran's just defensively better, and they've got this winger.
So have you seen the record? Defensively is not that good.
They've got a winger who had the golden boot in the Dutch league this year. So how often can you say that about an Asian team?
But I've seen his play. But anyway, so you're going?
Yeah, I'm going to go with Iran because you got Kairos. He can organize a team. He's been there for like 5 years, so he knows
the last big one.
Yeah,
Portugal and Spain.
I hope Portugal, but Spain's just too good.
I think it's going to be a goalless draw.
That's actually quite possible.
It's going to be good. This is what happens with big matches, with big teams. They will play out safe till the 90th minute. And then again, because these are
Ronaldo
suddenly popping up. I mean, jumping. Twice his height and he jumps twice. Anyway, we can get.
It's like one of those little. You play those video arcade games, things pop out and whack them. He's like that. Ronaldo just
so he basically compared $1 billion footballer to a pop up in a video game.
A $300 million.
$300 million. He's still shouting for his wages,
Yeah. So we've got this. Egypt to win the first match. Morocco and Iran were split, and well, the third match is going to be boring. So don't stare. Don't worry.
And the headlines tomorrow, and all the papers, and all the news channels across the world, including ours, Mohamed Salah is back with the ban.
Portugal and Spain are going out to Morocco and Iran.
And Ramos once again broke somebody's arm. Hopefully not.
Hopefully his own.
Hopefully his own. How can you break your own arm? But anyway, we'll catch you tomorrow, same time, discussing about. So we had not paid enough to watch.
So we're going to spend 3 days just watching all the football we can. Come back on Monday to give you some more users.
Don't you think it's the best job on earth? We just watch football and talk. But catch you on Monday, same time, on the football update.
In fact, I still very clearly remember I had this conversation with my father. He laughed. He's like, why would anybody drive somebody else? What if he runs away with the car? Those are the kind of questions that people have asked me, and it's just...
Have you used Zoomka?
Yeah.
Lovely.
The other startup, I don't know if you will call it a startup, is True South.
Okay.
They make coffee decoction.
Okay.
And they sell through Big Basket and Amazon and all of this. And it's not those crystals, it's basically decoction. And well, I'm a South Indian, so no guesses on what beverage I drink in the morning. But I really thought that was a really nice thing to do, and I am a big fan of True South. I only drink their coffee now.
Oh, you love coffee?
Yeah.
I don't like tea.
No, I like tea. in Delhi.
Okay. Okay, like the way you put it. In South, you like coffee. You go to I like tea in Delhi. Lovely. Are these two your customers?
I don't know about True. I don't know if they will need a call center or whatever. But Zoomcar, I think they're using us for something. I don't know for what.
Lovely. One last thing. Did you ever? I mean, it's a rhetorical question, but did you ever feel like giving up? You know what? I've done things in the past. I've created so many big things in the past. Do you ever felt like giving up during the first year or so?
Yeah, yesterday at 8 p.m. I felt it.
Okay. So what did you do after that?
Nah, it's just, look, the moment you have to keep your emotions out.
Okay.
So
fair.
I think, so every time something good happens, then you feel like I'm the rockstar CEO. And every time something bad happens, I can't take this anymore. So it's just, it happens to everyone.
Lovely.
I think you just have to...
Yeah, one of the interesting things is, I think your co-founder was also the gentleman who was on the board of people who got you into the college or something like that, who hired you. Am I right or no?
No.
Okay. So, because you went in as an intern, not college, at Yahoo if I'm not wrong.
Yeah. I joined at Yahoo as an intern and then I made my first job there.
Okay. And you created Yahoo Maps as well.
Well, I mean, it's a large company. Several people came together.
Come on, you can take credit. It's okay.
Yeah, well.
Okay, if you can put me in one line, what's the future of cloud telephony, particularly in India? Because if you look at what's been happening, a lot of rule changes happen in terms, a lot of amendments are to be made with the telecommunications industry in India. So people keep talking about 5G. Interesting thing is, we still don't get 4G and 3G properly in central Bangalore. But having said that, what's the future of cloud telephony in India?
No, I envision a time where instead of people going to their phone devices, we make communication ever pervasive. You are on your phone, you are trying to do a sales call, there is an app, you should be able to make a phone call, the call is tracked, it is transcribed, it is recorded, information is pushed. So that's the kind of vision that I have for. So I'll be talking about convergence of different kinds of mediums, we'll be talking about convergence of different kinds of softwares. So I think gone are the days when there used to be a separate call center software and then there's a separate CRM software. I think all of that is just disappearing. I think the API economy is transforming the way systems interact with each other in ways that we've never really understood. And I believe that once you make communication ever pervasive, I think we would have ended up creating a way for people to connect with each other as easily as possible. And I think that's always a great thing for the society.
Lovely, lovely. It was a pleasure talking to you. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for inviting me. It was
So that was Shipku, who wants to take away mobile phones as well as Excel sheets from your office because the future is cloud telephony.
Thank you. Thank you.
The society just knows one thing: put you down. That's all they've learned. They've learned that if you're different and if you're trying to make a mark for yourself, they will just come at you, they will bite you, and they will try to put you down, which is very, very sad. And it's really, really worse because this happens a lot more in the LGBT community. It's very funny how people just, put a face that they're very nice to you, and then behind your back, they talk about you. They're the same people who are spreading gossip about you. Oh, you know what? Ashish is depressed. Did you hear that he's gotten fat? I'm like, I have not even met you. Like, I don't even know you. And people have come and told me these things, and it really is hurtful because you're already trying to fight a battle inside your head, and then these things really psych you.
What's that one thing that actually makes you superbly proud? That one thing of being a woman.
But a woman is not one thing. Women is a lot of things together. But the point is, a woman is a lot of things in one package. Who has that? Imagine the multitasking you're doing, right? Imagine when we get married, we go into a new house. We are one alone person going into a new house. Suddenly, I have 300 new people to deal with. And I'm successfully doing that, right? How many men can do this? Hello? Acha, then you have finances. So it makes you excellent HR personnel, right? HR is about managing people. You're managing people, real life, right? Acha, you have a limited budget. Let's say you're a homemaker. You have a limited budget. You know तुमको घर चलाना है, बच्चे संभालने, everything in that budget. You're doing it, no? How are you less? Damn, you're the best. Right?
I like her.
Hello, you're a package of everything. That's why I'm very proud, yeah. Acha, when we think, na, women, right now I'm talking to you, I also have a little part of my brain working around my son's exams the next week. I have one part of my brain thinking, arey, my mom's medicines I have to do. But you give a man one thing, no, he's done with it. Right? Anything else extra is stress for him. We can think of so many things. That's womanhood, yeah. I'm proud of it, damn.
Montessori, it's a name of a person, and it's not a Montessori school. So Montessori school is one which completely follows the Montessori theories, Montessori equipments. All their educators are Montessori trained. Okay. So Montessori is not synonymous to preschool, as I said earlier also. Yes. No, like it's not Xerox and it's photocopy. Exactly.
Is something that was very was very poetic and powerful for me in Draupadi's character, and she's always described as the most beautiful woman with the most beautiful dark skin. I was flat chested, I just had a veil, and I would walk around with an album which had photographs that I had selected from both Draupadi's life of marrying 5 Pandavas and everything else that happens to her, and also in my head being the mother of the city of Bangalore and the changes that have been happening to the city. So, and she told me something I think she probably wouldn't even have told her therapist, which was a very deep personal incident of sexual abuse. And now as a performer, I felt like I had a true exchange where I had shared as Draupadi my humiliation, and she shared it back, and there was a healing of sorts.
So good to.
As I said earlier, preschool has different theories that they follow. So Maria Montessori was a renowned. She was she worked very closely with kids, and she came up with this very beautiful theory called the Montessori theory, and it is now gaining a lot of popularity. And it's about again freedom and exploration for the kids, and so this is one theory which has its own teaching aids. It has its own method, and once you enter, it takes kids at the tender age of 15 months, and multiple age groups are kept together, and you can go on with this theory to like higher grades. And at the same time, when you graduate to a mainstream school, the transition is very, very smooth. So you are ready and independent for the world much earlier. So this is what the Montessori theory is.
We got married because it's easier to get a joint loan. For all of you that don't know that. Maya is not your regular mother of relations, ladies and gentlemen.
Yeah, I'm like one of those women who has a rich husband and 5 boyfriends on the side.
Why only 5? Marriage is just a piece of paper. It doesn't stop your mind from being attracted or lustful towards other people. I don't think dogs have sexualities. But if I had to put my dog in our human system of labeling things, he's always stayed away from female dogs. People say that feminism is gender equality because women are the receivers of this inequality. But when you say that, you're going by the concept that there's only 2 genders.
Good evening and welcome to yet another edition of the Startup Stars here at India's first post-cable network, TheBigScope. And on the show today I've got with me Sachin Jaiswal, who is creating an AI chatbot that can talk to you in any Indian language possible, that can book Uber cabs for you, Ola cabs for you, even book your dinner, date, everything. And also try to be a friend. It's called Nikki AI. That's the company that we're creating. How many years has it been?
It's been 3 years now.
Wow. And what's the craziest thing Nikki AI has ever told you or a customer or your employee while you were trying to code that or make that platform? Because it's learning, it's an algorithm which is learning, it's throwing data at it.
Right. So basically some of the crazy responses have been when a couple of people try to game the system. They try to abuse it at times.
Okay.
So in such cases, Nikki comes back responding that I'm going to block you.
Okay.
So those are some of the funny tweaks that we've added into the platform.
Okay, so I want to understand. I've read a lot about you folks over the years. We'll talk about the funding story and all of that later on. But on the show, on this startup star show, we've got a lot of people who have built chatbots or who are trying to build voice assistants. Some of them closed down. A lot of people, you remember what I'm trying to get at. 3 years ago, a lot of startups, a lot of organizations, a lot of founders got into this chatbot business or voice assistant business. I'm not talking about the Googles of the world. Here in India, every day, I remember as a reporter, every day we used to go to and we had one press conference on one chatbot player. But now at this stage, there are only 4 or 5 remaining, like who actually made it survive that plot. So, what are you guys? Are you a chatbot, or how do I look at you at 2018? Are you a voice assistant now?
Right. Okay. I'll just take a step back and tell you a little bit about what we are trying to do. So, largely, the core mission for the company has always been that we want to make all online transaction as simple as talking to a friend. That has been the core mission of the company, and basically the reason why we saw that a big gap, because we knew that beyond the 30-40 million customers, people didn't really know how to use computers, right? And the first computing device that they got access to were mobile devices. So the idea was that to this new generation of users who are not coming from the same thought process as the Western users would have, for them this was, for them getting them to start transacting online would really take a phenomenal shift in user interface, right? And if you look at the statistics as well, out of 500 million customers, only 30-40 million are transacting. The bulk of the purchases that is happening offline. $750 billion is being spent offline, but out of that, only 20 to 30 billion dollars actually being spent online, right? So our core thesis is that if there is convenience in online purchases, can you simplify the booking process itself so that you can actually onboard more customers to the digital journey? And that is what we are trying to do. In China, there are similar instances of companies that have built an integrated ecosystem of services such as WeChat, Meituan. We are, on the contrary, building it over a conversational interface, but an integrated ecosystem of services.
So then, how have you made it? How's the progress been? Of making a chatbot or a voice assistant more contextual, more proactive. Well, I believe that would be the most challenging thing.
Yeah, it is. It is not just the most challenging thing, but also it is the most critical thing if you're looking at conversational systems. So if you look at if I take an example of Google or let's say Amazon, for example, they're trying to build Alexa. Amazon has come up with Alexa. Google has built Google Assistant. Microsoft has built Cortana. But none of them are contextual systems. They don't remember the context. And part of the reason is also that their use case is different. Most of them, they are trying to build a querying engine.
That's voice based. It's just a query based.
Correct. Versus when it comes to transactions, you actually need 15 to 20 different inputs during the course of the conversation, right? So it is important that you remember the context of the conversation and you are able to actually answer questions contextually, because imagine from a user perspective, right? If he wants to book a bus and every time if he has to repeat the entire course of the previous conversation, for example, he needs to tell me the source, the destination, the date of travel. He wants to tell me the seat that he would prefer, the bus that he would prefer. He wants to tell me the passenger details such as age, name, gender, etc. For all of those details, you can't expect the user to give it in one go, and simultaneously you can't expect the users to keep referring to what he said in the past, right? So it is best to build a system which is contextual. It is a challenging problem to solve. We built our own patented technology to really address context.
File the patents here in India.
Yeah.
So tell me that why would a person need that bot or a platform in between rather than directly go to a platform or an app and book a service?
Yeah. So the problem is that the existing set of apps, they are all touch and tap based interface, which is built for the Western world, not for
Agreed.
And and today we are the only platform that provides this.
So how many regional languages have you made your platform?
So right now we support English and Hindi, and the idea is that by December it will support 8 more languages.
Wow! And how are you building this? Because I remember, last week I think we were talking about something where I was talking online, and there's this particular professor in Chennai, and a professor, I think Mrs. Hema Murthy in IIT Chennai, where she spent the last 10-15 years of her life in building text to voice in more than 10 Indian languages and with different accents. Because even when you say Hindi, now the accent of people, the Hindi is very different accent. If we come from the eastern part of the country, we speak Hindi in a different way. If we come from Haryana, that part, Hindi is spoken in a different way. So how do you take care of these small nuts and bullets? I mean, every language will have, if you look at Tamil, I mean, say for example, if you go to a smaller tier 3 town somewhere, a person would speak Tamil in a completely different accent. So how would you interpose all these little elements when you're trying to do regional? Because there is a very big game you're trying to enter, like, you know, chatbot in regional.
Right. Okay, so basically from a company perspective, what our focus is to really understand language, the text that we get from the user, and respond back in text. Okay. And there are systems that you get which can actually integrate well with different accents in different languages. So we actually work with these system providers to really respond back in respective accent, and B kind of understand accents.
So is it like a very because it's really interesting because when I looked at the algorithm that she had built up, the professor had built up with her team over years, it was like on a video editing platform. You have like, okay, from this part of Tamil Nadu I've got this accent, and then you work on it. So do you have people on the ground who are going and collecting voice samples, who work on it so that it helps your platform at the end?
So I'll just reiterate here that it's not necessary to really build for all the different, to respond in all the different accents in a particular state, right? So as an engineer, we look at approximation as far as we can, so that we can actually solve the problem and still not really be 100% accurate. From a research standpoint, you might want to look at addressing it for all the different accents, but when it comes to a product per se, if someone can speak to me in Tamil, whatever the accent is, I will be able to understand.
All right. And is this the most challenging part of Nikki AI so far, going regional?
Yeah, I mean, it is challenging. And I think from a user perspective as well, it is very it is very useful as well to really go focus on to be able to respond in their native tongue. But having said that, it's not really the toughest of the challenge. The challenge is, once we built a system that can actually understand language, porting it to multiple languages is not really that difficult. It's just extending the skill set of Nikki.
Okay, lovely. So what all services is Nikki doing right now? I mean, I remember initially you started off going in the banking sector, the BFSI sector.
Right. So
what today, 2018, what all can Nikki do?
Right. So when we started, the way that we've gone about the journey is that we realized that because most open systems such as Siri, Cortana, they were actually open-ended systems. Therefore, they were not doing a good job on closed bounded problems. So we actually looked at starting with small bounded problems. The first 6 months we just focused on mobile recharges. The next 2.5 months we focused on cab bookings, and then 3 months later we launched bill payments, and gradually kept adding service category by category, right? And today Nikki.
So when you say service, it's like everything, right? Like booking a cab, a food, I mean a particular dish at night.
Correct. Right. So today Nikki can help you with a lot of things. It can help you. She can help you with mobile recharges, bill payments across data, card, DTH, electricity, postpaid, broadband bill payments, and so on and so forth. Nikki can also help you with if you want to eat out at KFC, Nikki can get you a deal and kind of help you get that. You can order burgers from Nikki. You can actually also book laundry pickup from your home location. You can book hotels, you can book buses, you can book events. So there are multiple services that we offer on the platform, and even for a general query, we typically tend to respond with something contextual.
Nice, interesting. So tell me something. That's a huge. I mean, there's a large variety of services that Nikki does, right? Now, the way algorithms are built, at the end of the day, they're built with people like us. Then how do you remove biases from this AI? How do you remove biases from algorithms?
Yeah, I think...
give me an answer from an engineering standpoint.
Sure.
Maybe that's it. And also give me an answer from a CEO standpoint.
Right. Right. So I think I understand the question where it comes from, and I'll tell you frankly, if you the only way to really build a system which can look at such a large ended problems is not really to go completely an unsupervised learning approach, right? So you should always keep it a supervised learning.
Okay.
So you always make sure that whatever training that you do for the bot, it is as per what you want, right? And keeping it open-ended actually makes it a lot more challenging because it can start becoming racial, for example.
What happened with the Microsoft bot on Twitter? It took them 1 hour to become racial.
Correct. And actually, the best way to really address that problem is to keep it controlled. Keep it as a supervised learning approach, and the team that we have in place, we actually have standards in place.
So AI can become intelligent only if supervised by humans.
Initially, yes, because if we want to make it, if we want to make sure that it is devoid of the same cultural inhibitions that our human society does, so we have to make sure that we train it.
So tell me something interestingly. This is a very critical point you mentioned, because at the crux of it, because it depends on who are we who are building it, who is that person behind who's building it, right? It depends a lot, because now earlier it was in silos. The internet today is not internet was the whole idea was not, you can't work in silos. Now it impacts everything and everything about my life from morning to evening, everything, what I do, what I eat, where I go, what I read even. So I did an experiment with a chatbot called Replica. It was created by this lady from Russia. It was, about the entire history. So I wrote a long story on, it was termed as my love story with a chatbot. I was amazed at the contextual information that it was trying to talk, the way it was trying to talk to me. There were times when it just responded in the middle of the night, it's been 2 days, you haven't talked to me. Now tell me something, having said all of that, don't you think we should have more women coders, or say, whatever, transgender who knows how to code? Because for the last 60-70 years, it's men who have created the computing system. There are great women who have also done it, but you wouldn't talk about, I don't see textbooks or people talking about them. So, because if you and me as men, we look at a problem, we're still looking at it from a point of view, a problem solving. Algorithm is problem solving. Tomorrow you get a transgender or a woman to look at it, they look at it in a very different way. So how do you democratize it then with specifics to your own organization?
Right. Okay. So in our organization, the NLP technology is headed by a woman. We have quite a diverse team in general, and some of the things that we observed is that typically women employees tend to stick around longer. They have a better retention rate, so we typically promote more women in our company, and as a company, I think we believe in the fact that we should have more diversity, because the problem that we are solving, it requires open-ended thinking, and it requires collaborative thinking. You can't just build it for one segment, right? I mean, if you look at it, half the population that we are going to serve is our women population. Right, so we have to build it with diversity in mind. So we always make sure.
Absolutely. How big is your team right now?
So we have 64 people.
64 people. Going forward, I mean, a couple of other tech questions, but as an entrepreneur, a lot of entrepreneurs, founders who have come here, enterprise CEOs who have come here. What is the right time to approach a VC? Tell me from your own perspective. Like when you say, no, this is the right time, I have to approach a VC. And do you also feel that if I go, it's not about equity stakes, all those things are different, but it's about what is my stake in the company. This was my vision. So did you ever feel when you were approaching a VC, or even after a conversation with a set of VCs, that you had, okay, what about my vision of the company? Their vision is a little different. Has it ever happened? That's the second, but when did you decide to approach?
Well, you don't decide when to approach a VC, they approach you.
Okay, I like that.
But basically, I think this is especially true if you're looking at, if you're approaching VC, I'm sure that you have your product market fit established and you know the market that you're after, and there is established credibility of the company, right? So automatically, if you've built that, if you've gained that kind of a scale, VCs will approach you. But if there are instances where you do have to approach VC, make sure that you know what the story is, right? Invariably, because every time you make multiple pivots, you make you try multiple things, you experiment, and some experiments succeed, some experiments fail. So you have to make sure that whenever you approach the VC, you know what the successful experiment is.
Okay.
So
How many times did you pivot in the initial phase?
We've not pivoted from the core story, but we've
of course, I mean, the ethos still remains the same.
Right. But what we've always ensured is that we've kept on experimenting a lot with our marketing strategy, with our distribution strategy, with our product, core product itself. Initially we were chat based, now we are voice, and then we've added vernacular support, and then initially we were distributing app only, now we are distributing Nikki through multiple other SDKs. So there are,
you partner with smartphone vendors
we partner with smartphones and banks to distribute Nikki, and we've realized so the reason why we do pivot is that, or rather, I wouldn't say pivot, I would rather say that the reason why we look at alternative strategies is because as an entrepreneur, you don't know what works, right? And you have to keep on experimenting, and the moment you find out that successful formula, you just scale. That is why we keep experimenting.
Okay, lovely. So a couple of last things, now say you give this platform, a lot of marketing people will use these kind of platforms. It's a great tool for marketeers. How do you stop them from not making it another form of spam?
Okay, I think there are sufficient checks and balances in place to make sure that it is not being spammed. And so everything today, every request that any marketer would want to make through the system will be controlled. So there is a filter, and you can only send the request to Nikki, and then Nikki decides whether or not to push it to the users. So we keep those checks and balances in place.
And do you function out of India also? You have customers out of India? As of now, no. So also, this entire platform of yours, I mean, as incredible as it may sound, because of the kind of services it's doing now, its voice assistant and all of that, you sit on a lot of mission critical data about people in the country. So, we don't have privacy rules in the country. It'll come. I mean, we still not, as a country, we're not matured enough as a democracy, internet democracy, to have rules. The Justice Sri Krishna Committee report came out last December on data privacy rules in India. Now, if in 2 or 3 years of time, if we have something like GDPR in India, and in between that, if you have customers who are in Europe or somewhere else, what is your strategy for privacy? Because an algorithm, or let me put it this way for the viewers, an AI is as powerful as the data you gets, right?
Correct.
So how do you take care of data privacy of an individual? Where do you tell them, the problem is, I'll tell you where the problem comes from. Like you and me, when we look at an app, when we look at the terms and conditions, it's good that GDPR has actually forced companies to redo terms and conditions and just put it simply, so that even in the, anybody who would have never touched a phone can understand that. So how do you redo that for people?
Right. So one, we don't collect data that we don't need in our in our use case. So if you don't really need customer data or demography data, I mean, there is no reason to really panic as such. I mean, so yeah, to kind of paraphrase, we don't go on to collect data about users which we don't need at all. All the data that we do have with our system is typically only transactional signals, right? In terms of what transactions the user is doing, and that is still a very critical data about a user in terms of where he's traveling, what are his purchase behaviors, how much does he spend, and so on and so forth, right? So what we make sure is that we always de-identify the data. So it is impossible to trace, even for our engineers, impossible to trace what which particular user this data pertains to. All they would know is that there was a booking done from point A to point B, but they would never know who that user is. So de-identifying the user is a great measure that we take. Apart from that, we also make sure that all the calls are kind of authenticated. So we always make sure that no hacker can ever invade the data, because all the calls are authenticated, and only we know the exact key to understand that particular conversation. And then thirdly, what we also do is that because our entire system lives in a farm of several machines, these machines are only privately accessed. So from a security point of view, it is way secure so at least for hackers it is impossible to kind of get access to that data. And given that we don't really store the user information, we kind of de-identify the user's data. So it is impossible for anyone, even if he has access to our system, they'll never know what that particular data is.
There's a great statement on security for your company. A couple of last things. The next 2 quarters, I know you've been pitching a lot about Nikki being the next big voice assistant. Next 2 quarters, what's the next major couple of things you want to do?
So one, we want to go more focused on vernacular, so we'll keep on adding more regional languages.
You're adding more team members to get that vernacular AI part out?
Yes.
Okay. So what kind of people do you look at? I mean, what type of skill sets do you look at when you want to build a team? You want to build the next regional language-based AI in India. So what kind of skill sets do you look at? So
we typically look at engineers with background in respective language, so that helps us understand. I mean, it's easier for him to filter out what that particular language really means. So if you have a query in Tamil, he should be able to understand it primarily, right? Because he has to build a system that would really understand a request in Tamil. So when we hire a team, we always make sure that it is aligned to that particular goal. Yeah, so coming back to the question on...
You also hire linguists along with engineers?
Yes.
Oh, interesting.
And basically today we have more than 5 people who work on language right now. And,
in the back, it's still based in Bangalore.
Correct. And over the next 6 months, we want to increase that to 15 people. And the idea is that going forward, we also want to expand Nikki across more platforms. So we'll continue to focus on SDK growth. So we'll continue to focus on distribution through multiple.
How many smartphone manufacturers have you partnered with this SDK?
So right now we have 3 smartphone manufacturers. We have 9 banks that have partnered with us. We have close to 5 lending companies that have partnered with us. In total, we have more than 25 partners who are distributing Nikki.
Is payment something, because you mentioned WeChat at the beginning of the interview, do you want to go the WeChat model or what WhatsApp is trying to do in India? Nikki make payments, because you did show me before the interview. Nikki also does payments, right? And AI will do my, he'll take care of my electricity payments or whatever. Do you want to go the WeChat way once?
So, of course, we want to integrate services much like WeChat has been doing that. But we will not build a WeChat interface in the sense that we are building an AI and we are not building a tab-based interface. So although like WeChat, we'll integrate all the services in the same platform.
Sorry. Air Force.
I know. Yeah. So much like WeChat, we are looking to integrate all the services in the same platform, but we are building an AI from a user interface point of view. So it's a conversational interface. You can actually talk to Nikki, right? Versus in a WeChat, you actually do a tab-based interaction. So that is the only difference. Otherwise, yes.
What's the team size and how much have you gotten funding so far?
So we've raised close to 4 million so far.
You're looking for more? I love
An entrepreneur is always raising.
Sachin, it was a pleasure talking to you. So that was Sachin Jaiswal, who's already built a platform, an artificial intelligence platform, which will probably make calls for you, order food for you, Uber and whatnot, even make payments for you in the future. So it's been a pleasure talking to you today.
Thanks a lot.
wondered and looked at the mobile number that the Ola driver uses to call you, now not that you have to do that, that number is not a private number of the driver or the Ola guy. This is something called a virtual number, which, and this entire market that it falls under is the cloud telephony market. And we've got Shivku, who's the CEO of Exotel, and he has created this virtual number. Now, to a lot of a young audience out there, young tech audience, what is cloud telephony? Not that it's something new, but what is it that you guys do?
So I think several people might be able to relate to cloud communication in the context of cloud computing.
Okay.
So what's happening with the cloud revolution is that people used to have servers in the office, and somebody decided that, hey, the internet bandwidth has become quite large now. So why don't we just take all these servers and put it in a data center, and can we access the computing power and the storage capabilities of these servers remotely? And then one led on to another, and then now that's like a thriving $100 billion business now. In fact, if I'm not wrong, it's the only business in Amazon that makes money for Amazon, by the way, even today.
To be noted. So finally somebody knows how Amazon makes all his money, but anyway, go forward with that.
So now that's about computing. So now if you were to now apply the same analogy to communication, earlier companies used to have servers and then lines coming from telcos connected, and there used to be an IT person who used to manage it. And most of you must have seen this big white phone that a receptionist used to have. So all of that was like boxes and wires inside a company. So can we now put all of that into the cloud? And can we now just use our mobile phones, which are pretty good with computing and stuff? And can we now give a internet-based interface where the entire system can be programmed and managed? In fact, we went one further, even below. We said, can we now give what we call as APIs, which stands for Application Programming Interface, which is kind of like the language that computers use to talk to each other. So if you are now a developer in a large enterprise that thinks about setting up communication maybe with your customer in a certain way, using a certain business process, then you could actually write code using our APIs to create exactly what you have in mind. So, a few years ago, we made the decision that enterprise communication is stuck in the shackles and it needs to be brought out of this jail. And we thought that the best way of doing that was to simply give these APIs, which are like the basic building blocks using which we can build communication, and let the customer decide what they want to do.
Do you feel you've succeeded in bringing that up?
Oh, we have a long way to go. I think the concept is certainly getting a lot of traction. For example, nobody would have thought that it is possible to use these APIs, and you were talking about the virtual numbers that, for example, Ola and Uber use to. The ultimate goal there is to protect the phone number or the privacy of the customer from going into the hands of the driver, because, well, it's a transactional thing. You don't want that person.
How do you stop that in this platform that you've created then?
So the way it works is every time you book a ride,
there's a top 50 contest, and I get to listen to almost 150 bands across the country, and easily I can pick about 30 bands which all deserve to be on #1 spot. There's so many good bands. It's just unreal how many great bands are doing great music now. And there's just so much content now and so much accessible avenues to listen to them. Internet has really revolutionized bands' approach towards music also. And the fact that the bands don't have to depend on middlemen anymore, like I had to when I started off. I needed a record label, I needed a booking agent, I needed a guy who will promote me, etc., etc. But now artists themselves, if they are hardworking, they can sit in their bedrooms and connect to audience around the world. Like Easy Wanderlings, for example, that I mentioned, the band, they have more fans in Europe and UK now, and then a little bit in US than in India. India hardly knows their existence, but they already have fans abroad, which is incredible. So sitting where they are in a small college hostel in Pune, they are able to reach out to the rest of the world, which is amazing.
Absolutely brilliant.
Yeah.
Actually, you beat me to it when you spoke about, what they're not getting right, which is song crafting. A few of the indie bands out there. Actually, a lot of them, because many people are just taking their baby steps into this whole scene. What are the other things that, maybe say 5 other things that that indie bands should keep in mind or should not do?
Like both me and Gaurav almost always advise bands or any other musician for that matter. When you want to become a doctor, you're ready to study for 5 years, the basic MBBS course, and then you study 2 more years of masters. In between, you have to do a year of whatever rural service, and then you do your masters, MD, and then you do a specialization. So you're counting at least 10 years of studying before you can call yourself a doctor and get into a decent level as a professional doctor and earn decent amount of money. If you want to be an engineer, again, you study 4 years and then you do like 2 years of MS or whatever, and then you join as a junior engineer, trainee, whatever, and then a year later you start getting a better pay. So 6-7 years, I would say. But musicians expect stardom and fame immediately after they write their first song.
What is to blame here?
That hunger and that want to become famous, you know, and have as many likes and as many, they want concerts, they want money, they want great hospitality rider being accepted, etc., etc. You know, but it doesn't happen. Like, it didn't happen to me at least for 12 years before I could get paid for my first gig. So it does take time, and musicians need to understand, and youngsters especially, that music as a career, if you're serious about it, you need to seriously spend time behind both your craft as a musician and also as much time as it takes to market yourself. And if you're not good at it, then just get somebody else as a professional. Invest money in getting that thing done. So it takes years of and hours every day to get wherever you have to eventually, and then tide over several failures. I think that is the story which most of them don't get to hear. They only get to see somebody who is successful and doing well. But only I know how many sleepless nights and how many tears and how much money I've lost, and people will probably laugh at me if I start telling the stories where I've failed miserably and how many times.
One such story?
Like, for example, the first tour we did of UK, I spent 36 lakhs from my pocket to make that tour happen. People back home in India, especially my non-musician friends, used to say, but you could have bought a site in Kamanalli. 40, 60 easily would have got it. Today that value would have been 3 crores. You know, this is the kind of discussion I get into. And it puzzles me completely of how limited a vision people have about what life can be. The fact that I have endless amount of stories to fill 2 books maybe, or at least the entire childhood of all my grandchildren is incredible. They will not have original stories like mine to tell their grandchildren, for example. I don't think people realize that there is so much more than just buying a site and building a house and having a family and driving a car around and eat popcorn and watch a movie during weekends. There's so much more to life than and there's so much more to see and experience and so many experiences that will make you richer as a person, maybe poorer by the pocket, but definitely richer as a person. And today I'm very proud of the fact that we as a band were bold enough to spend whatever we had. I'm still, like I keep telling, I'm okay not having a car today. I still have a scooter which I ride around, and I have a studio which I'm very proud of, and I live in my studio and I work from my studio, and I don't have a separate home that I go to, and so it depends on what your priorities are, what makes you happy, and as long as you're focused on that alone, I think it happens. And once you define what makes you happy, I think life just gets sorted.
अच्छा बोधी, एक बात बताओ, मैं आपसे पूछती हूँ कि अगर मैं बोलती हूँ डॉक्टर, तो वो लड़का है लड़की है? लड़का है। पुलिस? लड़का। लॉयर? लड़का। लड़की? लड़का। और नर्स? लेडीज। लेडीज। So this is the problem
कि हम लोग हमेशा अज्यूम करते हैं और ये जो नॉर्मल बना देते हैं कि ये काम सिर्फ लड़के करेंगे और ये वाला काम सिर्फ लड़के करेंगे। आयनिंग का काम लड़कियां करेंगी, हाउसवाइफ ही करेगी, है ना। तो आइडिया बेसिकली हमारे कैंपेन का यही था कि वो जो एक चार्ट आता है ना स्कूल में, पुराने टाइम में एक आता था आर हेल्पर्स चार्ट, जिसमें हम लोग ये दिखाते हैं डॉक्टर लड़का, इंजीनियर लड़का, फार्मर लड़का, लॉयर लड़का। तो उस चार्ट को हम लोगों ने लिया और उस चार्ट को पूरा चेंज कर दिया। तो सब जगह लड़की 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 डाल दिया, क्योंकि लड़कियां भी वो काम करती हैं, लेकिन हम लोग उसको एक्नॉलेज नहीं कर रहे हैं या उसको रिकग्नाइज नहीं कर रहे हैं, या वो एक जो स्टीरियोटाइप बन जाता है कि अगर आप लड़के हैं तो यही काम करेंगे। तो उसको चैलेंज करने के लिए हमने वो पोस्टर बनाया और पूरा ट्रक को उससे डेकोरेट किया।
She went out at night.
Right. So I think that I'm curious to understand where the debate really lies. Like, she went out at night and so she deserved to be assaulted and raped and murdered, or to that I would say that, you know, one is that women experience assault any given time of the day. It happens at home, it happens outside home, on campuses, at workplaces, it happens online, it happens across time, day, geography, identity. So that's one. Second is that there is no excuse. You may be offended by my choices. You and I may not follow the same lifestyle also. You may disagree, but you have, not you, but any person, but they don't have the right to violate or intrude upon or hurt or harm or kill or murder or gang rape or rape or any of the degrees of what sexual violence is. There's no justification. So whether it's at 3 a.m. or 2 a.m. or midnight or 1 p.m., there is no excuse for sexual violence.
Go-go dancing is also an art form.
Yes, it is. It's more of a art form, more of a culture, more of a profession, I may not get a boyfriend. I'm scared of that.
There was a part where he was wearing a tight shirt and magically when he's moving, his buttons just opened up.
That was accident, by the way. That was completely accident. I was planning to rip it off.
I was like, wait, he told me he's going to rip it out. How did it just magically open by itself?
I do have a time. This is embarrassing. He's like, can't say I don't have a time. Damn it. Look at what this fat feminist is saying about me, and